Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance watching the stars through the viewport when the emergency communication came through. The red warning lights flashed across every screen and the urgent beeping filled the command center. His communications officer, Lieutenant Amy Chun, turned to him with worry in her eyes. "Captain, we have an urgent transmission from Earth Command," she said. "Priority Alpha level clearance required." Jake walked to the main communication console and placed his hand on the scanner. The machine beeped and Admiral Lisa Hayes appeared on the screen. Her face looked tired and stressed. Behind her, Jake could see other high-ranking military officers moving around frantically. "Captain Morrison, report to Earth immediately," Admiral Hayes said. "We have a situation that requires all fleet commanders. The Galactic Council has just delivered their final ultimatum." Jake felt his stomach drop. He had been expecting this day for months, but hoping it would never come. The tensions between humanity and the alien coalition had been growing worse every week. The Council had been making more and more demands about human expansion into space. "What are their demands this time, Admiral?" Jake asked. "They want us to abandon 12 of our outer colonies within 72 hours, Admiral Hayes replied. "All 50 million colonists must be evacuated or they will begin military action against us." Jake could not believe what he was hearing. Those colonies had been built over decades with human blood and sweat. Families had lived there for generations. The farming worlds provided food for billions of people back on Earth. The mining colonies supplied materials for human ships and technology. "That is impossible, Admiral," Jake said. "We cannot move 50 million people in 3 days." "I know, Captain," Admiral Hayes said. "That is exactly what they are counting on. Report to Earth Command immediately. We are calling an emergency session with all fleet commanders and government officials." The transmission ended and Jake turned to his crew. They had all heard the conversation and their faces showed the same shock and anger that he felt. Lieutenant Chun was the first to speak. "Sir, what are we going to do?" she asked. "We are going to fight," Jake said simply. "Prepare the ship for immediate departure to Earth. Send word to all department heads that we need maximum speed." The journey to Earth took 18 hours at maximum warp. During that time, Jake read every report about the Galactic Council that he could find. The alien coalition was led by the Vorthek Empire, whose ambassador Zekthar had been pushing for human restrictions for years. The Vorthek considered themselves the supreme military power in the galaxy. The council also included the technologically advanced Cathari, who provided most of the alien weapons and ships. The Zillan swarms contributed massive numbers of soldiers and workers. The ancient hegemony of worlds claimed to be the oldest civilization and demanded respect from all younger species. All of these alien races had one thing in common: they feared human expansion and growth. In just 200 years since first contact, humans had spread to over 100 worlds. Human colonies were thriving and growing, while many alien worlds were stagnant and declining. When Jake arrived at Earth Command, he found the massive underground complex buzzing with activity. Military officers and government officials were rushing between meetings. The main briefing room was packed with every important person in human space. Admiral Hayes stood at the front of the room, next to a massive holographic display showing the galaxy. Red dots marked the locations of alien fleets that were already moving toward human space. Yellow dots showed the 12 colonies that the Council wanted abandoned. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Hayes began, "we face the greatest threat in human history. The Galactic Council has given us an ultimatum that we cannot possibly meet. They know this. They want us to fail so they can justify their attack on human civilization." President Maria Collins stepped forward. She was a tall woman with gray hair and stern eyes. Jake had met her several times and always respected her strength and intelligence. "The Council believes that humans are too primitive and aggressive to deserve our place in space," President Collins said. "They want us to remain on Earth and a few nearby worlds. They want to control our growth and development." Dr. Sam Rodriguez from the Xenobiology Department stood up. He was carrying a tablet with classified information. Jake could see that his hands were shaking slightly. Madam President, I have disturbing intelligence about the Council's true intentions, Dr. Rodriguez said. We have been monitoring their communications for months. They have been studying captured human soldiers and civilians. The room fell silent. Everyone knew that some humans had been taken prisoner during border conflicts with alien raiders. The government had always claimed they were working to get them back. What did they discover, Doctor? President Collins asked. They have been trying to understand what makes humans so effective in combat, Dr. Rodriguez replied. What they found terrified them. Our capacity for adaptation under pressure. Our creativity when facing impossible odds. Our absolute refusal to surrender even when defeat seemed certain. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The aliens had been studying humans like laboratory animals. They were trying to find weaknesses they could exploit. The Council's xenobiologists wrote in their reports that humans are the most dangerous species they have ever encountered. Dr. Rodriguez continued. Not because we are stronger or faster than other species, but because we never give up. We keep fighting even when logic says we should surrender. Admiral Hayes activated the holographic display. It showed alien fleet movements from the past 6 months. Thousands of ships were slowly surrounding human space like a tightening noose. They have been planning this for over a year, Admiral Hayes said. Every diplomatic meeting was just a delay tactic while they positioned their forces. They never intended to negotiate fairly with us. President Collins walked to the center of the room. Every eye was focused on her. Jake could see the determination in her face and knew that she had already made her decision. The age of diplomacy is over, President Collins said. We will not abandon our colonies. We will not evacuate our people. We will not bow to alien demands. She paused and looked around the room at every face. As of this moment, humanity withdraws from all Galactic Council proceedings. We will no longer attend their meetings. We will no longer follow their regulations. We will no longer pretend that they have authority over human affairs. The room erupted in voices as officers and officials began talking at once. Some sounded worried about the consequences. Others sounded excited about finally standing up to the aliens. Jake felt a mixture of fear and pride. What about the alien fleets moving toward our space? Admiral Hayes asked. Let them come, President Collins replied. They will discover that pushing humanity too far was their greatest mistake. 3 months had passed since President Collins declared humanity's withdrawal from the Galactic Council. Admiral Rick Turner stood in the command center of the orbital defense station above Earth watching the long-range sensors. The screens showed hundreds of alien ships positioned at the edge of human space. Like hungry predators waiting to strike, the blockade had been complete from the very beginning. No alien ships were allowed to enter human territory, and no human ships were allowed to leave. The Council had cut off all trade routes and communication channels with other species. They wanted to strangle humanity slowly until the colonies begged for mercy. Admiral, we have another broadcast coming in from the Council, reported Lieutenant Commander Beth Parker from the communications station. Same message as yesterday. Put it through, Admiral Turner said with a tired sigh. The main screen filled with the image of Ambassador Zekthar. The Vorthak alien's reptilian face showed what humans had learned to recognize as smugness. His yellow eyes gleamed with confidence as he spoke in his mechanical translated voice. Humans of Earth, Zekthar began, your foolish leaders have brought suffering to your people. Your colonies are running out of food and medical supplies. Your ships cannot travel beyond your borders. All of this can end if you simply accept Council authority and abandon your illegal settlements. Admiral Turner had heard this same speech dozens of times. The Council truly believed that humans would break under economic pressure. They had never dealt with a species that valued freedom more than comfort. Your children are hungry, Zekthar continued. Your elderly are dying without proper medicine. How long will you let them suffer for the pride of your leaders? The Council offers mercy to those who surrender peacefully. The transmission ended and Admiral Turner turned to his staff. The The command center was filled with human officers who had been working around the clock for months. Their faces showed exhaustion but also determination. "Status report on the outer colonies," Admiral Turner ordered. Commander Beth Parker pulled up the data on her screen. She had been monitoring conditions on all human worlds since the blockade began. The news was not good, but it was not hopeless. "Either New Denver is down to 60% food reserves," she reported. "The mining colony at Titan Station is running low on medical supplies. The manufacturing worlds are struggling without raw materials from alien traders." "What about morale?" Admiral Turner asked. "Surprisingly high, sir," Commander Parker replied. "The colonists are angry, but they are not giving up. They remember what happened to species that surrendered to the Council in the past." Admiral Turner nodded. The human intelligence services had done their job well. Everyone knew that species who accepted Council authority lost their independence forever. They became servant races working for alien masters. Chief Engineer Danny Wright approached the Admiral with a tablet full of technical reports. Danny had been working on classified projects in hidden facilities across human space. His team had been making breakthrough after breakthrough using captured alien technology. "Sir, we have made significant progress on the new propulsion systems," Danny said quietly. "The reverse engineering program is ahead of schedule. We should have working prototypes within 2 months." This was the best news Admiral Turner had heard in weeks. Humanity had been studying alien technology for decades, but the blockade had forced them to accelerate their research. Necessity was driving innovation at an incredible pace. "What about weapons development?" Admiral Turner asked. "Even better, sir," Danny replied with a slight smile. "We have figured out how to modify their energy weapons to work with our power systems. Our new ships will be smaller than theirs, but much more maneuverable." Across the galaxy, the Council leaders were meeting in their great chamber on the capital world. The massive room was filled with representatives from dozens of species. Most of them believed that humanity would surrender within days. "The human colonies are weakening," reported a Cathari military advisor. "Our intelligence shows food riots on 3 worlds. Their primitive supply systems cannot handle the blockade." Ambassador Zekthar stood at the center of the chamber. His confidence had only grown stronger over the past months. He had studied human history and believed he understood their weaknesses. "Humans are emotional creatures," Zekthar said to the assembled aliens. "They cannot endure prolonged hardship. Their leaders will be forced to negotiate soon or face rebellion from their own people." But not everyone in the chamber agreed with this assessment. Ambassador Vexara of the Ethon Republic had been watching human behavior with growing concern. Her people were naturally peaceful, but they understood courage when they saw it. "Perhaps we have underestimated them," Vexara said carefully. "The humans have not sent a single message requesting negotiations. Their colonies continue to function despite the hardships." Several alien leaders made dismissive sounds. The Merchant Guild representative spoke up from his position near the back of the chamber. "The humans were our best trading partners," he said. "They paid fair prices and honored their contracts. This blockade is costing us billions in lost revenue." "Short-term losses for long-term stability," Zekthar replied coldly. "Once the humans accept their proper place in the galaxy order will be restored." Meanwhile, on the human agricultural world of New Denver, the first real test of the blockade was about to begin. A council fleet of 30 ships had moved into the system and was demanding that the colonists evacuate immediately. Colonel Amy Stevens stood in the command bunker watching the alien ships through the defense screens. She had 2,000 soldiers under her command and knew that the aliens had at least 20,000 troops on their ships. "Colonel, they are demanding our surrender," reported her communications officer. "They say they will give us 6 hours to evacuate before they begin bombardment." "Tell them we decline their generous offer," Colonel Stevens replied. "All units prepare for defensive action." The battle began at dawn. The alien ships came down through the atmosphere expecting light. Resistance. They had fought many species before and most surrendered quickly when faced with overwhelming force, but the humans had spent months preparing for this moment. They had built hidden bunkers and weapon emplacements. They had studied alien tactics and developed countermeasures. Most importantly, they had something the aliens did not understand. The humans refused to give up. When the aliens destroyed their main base, the humans fought from secondary positions. When those were overrun, they fought from the forests and mountains. Every human soldier seemed to fight with the fury of someone defending their home and family. The aliens had superior numbers and technology, but they had never faced an enemy that simply would not stop fighting. After 18 hours of continuous combat, the alien commander made a decision that shocked the entire council. He ordered his fleet to retreat. The news spread across the galaxy within hours. The mighty council forces had been defeated by a small human colony. The psychological impact was enormous. If humans could win against such odds, what else were they capable of? Ambassador Zekthar received the report in his private chambers. For the first time since the blockade began, he felt a touch of doubt. Maybe the humans were more dangerous than he had believed. 6 months had passed since the blockade began, and everything was about to change. Dr. Emma Torres stood in the secret research facility on Luna, staring at the massive engine prototype that would revolutionize human space travel. The machine hummed with energy as her team ran the final tests on what they called Project Prometheus. "Doctor, we are getting stable readings across all systems," reported her lead engineer, Carl Johnson. "The new faster-than-light drive is working perfectly. We can travel anywhere in the galaxy without using a single piece of alien technology." Emma felt a surge of pride and excitement. For decades, humans had depended on alien navigation systems and jump gates to travel between stars. The Council had always controlled these systems, which gave them power over human movement. Now that was about to end forever. "How fast can we build more of these drives?" Emma asked. "We have factories on 12 worlds ready to begin production," Carl replied. "Within 3 months, we can equip every ship in the human fleet with independent FTL capability." The news reached Earth Command within hours. Admiral Hayes stood in the Situation Room with President Collins and the other military leaders. The holographic display showed the current positions of all human and alien forces across the galaxy. "This changes everything," Admiral Hayes said. "We can break the blockade and move our fleets anywhere we want. The aliens will no longer be able to trap us in our own territory." President Collins studied the star charts carefully. She had been planning for this moment since the blockade began. The time for passive defense was over. "I want our best stealth ship prepared for a reconnaissance mission," she ordered. "We need to know what is really happening outside human space." "Captain." Ron Mitchell received his orders 3 days later. His ship, the UES Shadow, was the most advanced stealth vessel in the human fleet. It was small and fast with the new Prometheus drive installed. Most importantly, it could slip past alien sensors without being detected. "Sir, we are ready to depart on your command," reported his navigator, Lieutenant Karen Wells. "The new drive is calibrated, and we have enough supplies for a 2-week mission." "Take us out," Captain Mitchell ordered. "Let's see what the aliens have been hiding from us." The Shadow slipped through the blockade like a ghost. The alien patrol ships never even knew it was there. For the first time in months, a human vessel was traveling freely through Council space. What Captain Mitchell discovered shocked him. The alien coalition was not as united as they pretended to be. 3 different species had withdrawn their ships from the blockade. The merchant guilds were openly complaining about lost profits. Several minor species were facing economic collapse without human trade. "Captain, we are intercepting communications from the Ethon Republic," Lieutenant Wells reported. "Their parliament is debating whether to continue supporting the blockade." "What are they saying?" Captain Mitchell asked. "They are questioning whether the Council has the right to starve entire human colonies," she replied. "Some of their leaders are calling the blockade immoral and counterproductive." This was exactly the kind of intelligence that Earth Command needed. The aliens were not the monolithic enemy they appeared to be. Many species were having second thoughts about the war against humanity. Captain Mitchell ordered his ship to move deeper into alien space. They needed to gather as much information as possible before returning to human territory. What they found next was even more disturbing. The shadow detected massive construction projects in 3 different star systems. The aliens were building something huge, and the energy signatures were unlike anything in human databases. "Sir, these structures are enormous," Lieutenant Wells said as she analyzed the sensor data. "They appear to be some kind of weapon platforms, but the power readings are off the charts." Captain Mitchell felt a chill run down his spine. The aliens were not just maintaining a blockade. They were preparing for something much worse. Meanwhile, back in human space, General Paul Anderson was implementing a new military strategy. The old doctrine of defending fixed positions was being replaced with something far more aggressive. Human forces would strike directly at Council infrastructure and supply lines. "The aliens have grown soft from centuries of easy domination," General Anderson explained to his staff officers. "They expect their enemies to fight conventional battles. We are going to show them what asymmetric warfare really means." The first target was a Council communications hub in the Kepler system. The facility coordinated blockade operations across dozens of star systems. If it was destroyed, the alien fleet would lose its ability to communicate effectively. Commander Helen Brooks volunteered to lead the attack. Her squadron consisted of 12 ships equipped with the new Prometheus drives and modified human weapons. They would hit the target fast and hard before the aliens could respond. "Remember, we are not just fighting for military victory," Commander Brooks told her pilots. "We are fighting to prove that humanity cannot be caged. Every alien in the galaxy is watching to see if we will break under pressure." The attack began at 0600 hours Galactic Standard Time. The human ships jumped directly into the Kepler system using their new FTL drives. The aliens had never seen ships appear so suddenly without using jump gates. The communications hub was defended by 20 alien warships, but they were not prepared for the human assault. The human ships were smaller and more maneuverable than anything the aliens had faced before. They darted between the massive alien vessels like fighters attacking bombers. "Target their weapon systems first," Commander Brooks ordered. "We want to disable them, not destroy them." The battle lasted only 30 minutes, but the psychological impact was enormous. The humans had struck deep into Council space and destroyed a major military facility. More importantly, they had proven that the blockade could not contain them. Intelligence officer Kevin Murphy was monitoring alien communications when the news of the attack spread across the galaxy. He could hardly believe what he was hearing. "Sir, the aliens are panicking," he reported to Admiral Hayes. "They never expected us to develop independent FTL capability. They thought we were trapped in our own territory." But Kevin had discovered something far more disturbing in the intercepted messages. The Council was not just planning to maintain the blockade. They were preparing to eliminate humanity entirely. "Admiral, we have a problem," Kevin said quietly. The intercepted communications from the Vorthok High Command mentioned something called the Final Solution Protocol. They are building a planet-killer weapon. Admiral Hayes felt her blood turn to ice. She had suspected that the aliens might escalate the conflict, but she had not imagined they would resort to genocide. "How long until this weapon is operational?" she asked. "According to the intelligence reports, no more than 2 months," Kevin replied. "They are planning to test it on one of our outer colonies first." The news reached President Collins within the hour. She stood in the Oval Office looking out at the night sky and thinking about the billions of human lives that were now at risk. "Madam President, what are your orders?" Admiral Hayes asked. "The time for defensive action is over," President Collins replied. "If they want to escalate this conflict, we will give them more than they bargained for. Prepare Operation Blackout." Admiral Hayes nodded grimly. Operation Blackout was the most ambitious military campaign in human history. Instead of defending their colonies, humanity would strike directly at the heart of Council power. The aliens had pushed too far, and now they would learn what happened when humanity stopped negotiating and started fighting. Operation Blackout began at dawn on a Tuesday that would change galactic history forever. Admiral Hayes stood in the command center watching dozens of screens. showing human fleets moving toward their targets across 12 different star systems. This was not a defensive action but a coordinated assault on the very heart of Council power. "All fleet commanders report ready for simultaneous attack," reported her communications officer Lieutenant Dave Martinez. "We have green lights across all operational zones." The plan was ambitious beyond anything humanity had ever attempted. Instead of waiting for the aliens to complete their planet-killer weapon, human forces would strike Council military installations simultaneously. The goal was to cripple their ability to wage war and send a clear message that humanity would not be exterminated quietly. Colonel Tony Garcia led the assault on the Vorthak homeworld orbital defenses. His task force consisted of 40 ships equipped with the new Prometheus drives and weapon systems that combined captured alien technology with human innovation. The Vorthak considered themselves the supreme military power in the galaxy, and their homeworld was protected by massive defense stations. "Sir, we are detecting over 200 enemy ships in defensive formation," reported his tactical officer, Captain Lisa Brown. "They have energy shields and weapon systems we have never seen before." "Remember what we learned from the new Denver battle," Colonel Garcia replied calmly. "Superior technology means nothing if you cannot adapt to changing tactics. Begin attack pattern Omega." The human ships spread out in a formation that the aliens had never encountered. Instead of attacking in straight lines like traditional fleets, the human vessels moved in complex patterns that made them difficult to target. They struck at weak points in the alien defenses and vanished before the enemy could respond effectively. The Vorthak commanders watched in growing alarm as their mighty orbital fortresses began to explode one by one. These defenses had protected their homeworld for over 1,000 years, but they were being destroyed by a species they had considered primitive. "How are they moving so fast?" demanded General Korth, the Vorthak military commander. "Our sensors cannot track their movement patterns." "They are using some kind of new propulsion system," replied his aide. "Our intelligence reports were wrong about human technological capabilities." Meanwhile, Captain Lucy Martin was leading a different kind of mission in the Outer Rim territories. Her assignment was to make contact with alien species that might be willing to support humanity against the Council. Intelligence reports suggested that many worlds were unhappy with Council rule, but were too afraid to speak openly. "Captain, we are receiving a transmission from the Centauri Republic," reported her communications officer Ensign Mike Roberts. "They want to arrange a secret meeting with our diplomatic team." This was exactly what Captain Martin had been hoping for. The Centauri Republic was a small but influential species that had been neutral in most galactic conflicts. If they were willing to meet with humans, it meant that Council unity was breaking down. "Set course for the meeting coordinates," Captain Martin ordered, "and make sure we are not followed." This could be the beginning of something much bigger than military victory. The meeting took place on a remote asteroid station that had been abandoned for decades. Captain Martin brought only a small diplomatic team, but what she learned changed everything about the conflict. "The Council has been lying to the galaxy for centuries," explained Ambassador Veltar of the Centauri Republic. "They claim to bring peace and stability, but they rule through fear and intimidation. Many species have been eliminated when they became too independent." "What do you mean, eliminated?" Captain Martin asked. "Complete destruction of their homeworlds," Ambassador Veltar replied quietly. "The Council has a weapon that can destroy entire planets. They have used it before, and they are planning to use it again." Captain Martin felt sick to her stomach. The intelligence reports about a planet-killer weapon were true, but the situation was even worse than they had imagined. The Council had been committing genocide for thousands of years. "Why has no one spoken out about this before?" she asked. "Because the survivors were too terrified to resist," Ambassador Veltar explained. "The Council would choose one species as an example and destroy them completely. The other species would fall in line to avoid the same fate." Dr. Peter Clark was working frantically in his laboratory, analyzing the captured alien weapon components that Kevin Murphy had obtained during his intelligence mission. What he discovered made him realize that humanity was facing an enemy far more dangerous than they had imagined. Admiral, we have completed our analysis of the genocide weapon. Dr. Clark reported to Admiral Hayes via secure communication. The device is not just a planet killer. It is designed to make entire star systems uninhabitable. How is that possible? Admiral Hayes asked. It destabilizes the local star, causing it to emit lethal radiation, Dr. Clark explained. Every planet in the system becomes uninhabitable for thousands of years. It is the ultimate weapon of terror. How many species have they used this against? Admiral Hayes asked. According to the technical specifications, at least 3 in the past millennium, Dr. Clark replied. The weapon was tested on the Karathi homeworld 500 years ago. The entire species was wiped out in a matter of hours. The news reached President Collins as she was preparing for the most important speech of her life. The human assault on council installations had been successful, beyond all expectations, but the discovery of the genocide weapon had changed everything. Madam President, the weapon is almost complete, Admiral Hayes reported. Our intelligence suggests they plan to test it on the new Denver colony within days. Then we have no choice, President Collins replied. It is time to tell the galaxy the truth about what they are facing. The broadcast went out on every frequency to every inhabited world in the galaxy. President Collins stood in the Oval Office speaking directly to billions of beings across hundreds of worlds. Citizens of the galaxy, I speak to you today not as the leader of humanity, but as someone who has discovered a terrible truth about the organization that claims to govern us all. She began. The Galactic Council has been lying to you for centuries. She presented the evidence that Dr. Clark had analyzed. Technical specifications for the genocide weapon. Historical records of species that had been eliminated. Communications between council leaders discussing which worlds to target next. The weapon they are building is not meant to defeat human military forces, President Collins continued. It is meant to eliminate every human being in the galaxy. But we are not the first species they have chosen for extermination, and we will not be the last. The reaction across the galaxy was immediate and explosive. Species that had remained neutral suddenly began questioning council authority. The merchant guilds openly condemned the genocide program. Even some council member species began to distance themselves from the Vorthek leadership. This is bigger than a war between humans and aliens, President Collins concluded. This is a fight for the future of all free beings in the galaxy. We will not negotiate with genocidal tyrants. We will not surrender to those who would commit mass murder. We will fight until every sentient being in the galaxy is free from the threat of extinction. The speech ended, but its impact was just beginning. Across the galaxy, species that had lived in fear for millennia began to find their courage. The human rebellion had become something much larger than anyone had imagined. Admiral Hayes received reports that alien fleets were abandoning their positions and returning to their homeworlds. The monolithic council was fracturing as species chose sides in the coming conflict. Madam President, we have accomplished something remarkable, Admiral Hayes reported. We have not just defended humanity. We have exposed the truth about council tyranny to the entire galaxy. The hardest part is still ahead of us, President Collins replied. They will try to use that weapon before we can stop them. Prepare the fleet for the final confrontation. The final battle began above the council capital world as thousands of ships from dozens of species gathered for what everyone knew would decide the fate of the galaxy. Admiral Turner stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance watching the massive alien fleet assembling in defensive formation around their seat of power. Sir, we are detecting over 3,000 enemy vessels, reported Lieutenant Commander Sarah Davis from the tactical station. The Vorthek have called in every ship they control plus their remaining allies. The human fleet was much smaller with only 800 ships, but they were not alone. The Ethon Republic had openly joined the human cause, bringing 200 vessels of their own. The merchant guilds had contributed another 100 ships along with detailed intelligence about council defensive systems. Admiral, we are receiving communications from the surface, reported the communications officer. President Collins is ready to begin the diplomatic phase of the operation. This was the most dangerous part of the plan. While the fleets faced each other in space, President Collins would meet with representatives from species that wanted to join humanity's cause. The goal was to create a new galactic government based on freedom rather than fear. Ambassador Zekthar appeared on the main screen of every ship in both fleets. His reptilian face showed the same arrogance that had started this entire conflict. But now there was something else in his yellow eyes: fear. "Humans and their foolish allies," Zekthar began. "You have made a terrible mistake coming here. This system is protected by the most powerful fleet in galactic history. Surrender now, and we will make your deaths quick." Admiral Turner activated the fleet communication system so that every human ship could hear his response. "Ambassador Zekthar," Admiral Turner said calmly, "we did not come here to negotiate or surrender. We came here to end your reign of terror forever. The galaxy will be free whether you cooperate or not." The Vorthic fleet began moving into attack formation, but something unexpected happened. Several groups of ships at the back of their formation suddenly changed course and withdrew from the battlefield. These were species that had decided they no longer wanted to support Council tyranny. "Sir, the hegemony of worlds is pulling back," reported Lieutenant Commander Davis. "So are the Cathara Union and the Stellar Collective. The enemy fleet just lost over 400 ships." This was better than Admiral Turner had dared to hope. The revelation about the genocide weapon had shattered Council unity. Species that had supported the blockade were unwilling to fight for leaders who would commit mass murder. Captain Jake Morrison led the first wave of the attack. His squadron targeted the Council command ships that were trying to coordinate the defensive effort. The new human weapons were proving devastatingly effective against alien technology that had not been updated for centuries. "Target their communication arrays," Captain Morrison ordered his pilots. "If we can blind their fleet command, they will not be able to coordinate their defense." The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The human ships moved in formations that the aliens could not predict or counter. They struck at weak points and vanished before the enemy could respond. Most importantly, they fought with the fury of beings who knew they were fighting for their very survival. Commander Helen Brooks discovered that her squadron was facing a group of ships that were not shooting back. When she opened communications with them, she learned something remarkable. "Human Commander, this is Captain Villeneuve of the Draknari Fleet," came the transmission. "We refuse to fight for the Council any longer. We have seen the evidence of their crimes, and we will not be part of genocide." "Captain Villeneuve, are you willing to help us stop the genocide weapon?" Commander Brooks asked. "We will do whatever is necessary," Captain Villeneuve replied. "Many of us have lost friends and family to Council purges over the centuries. It is time for justice." The tide of battle turned when these defecting alien ships began actively helping the human forces. They provided targeting data for Council defensive systems and guided human squadrons to the most important targets. The mighty Council fleet was falling apart from within. On the surface, President Collins met with representatives from over 50 species in the Great Assembly Hall that had once housed Council meetings. The Ethan Ambassador Vexara stood beside her as they addressed the gathered delegates. "We are not here to create a new empire," President Collins explained. "We are here to establish a confederation of free worlds where each species governs itself without interference from others." "How can we trust that humans will not become the new tyrants?" asked Ambassador Kephanol of the Rigelian Commonwealth. "Because we will write it into the founding charter," President Collins replied. "No single species will have authority over any other. All decisions will be made by democratic vote of all member worlds." This was a radical concept for most galactic species. The Council had always ruled through hierarchy and dominance. The idea of equal representation for all civilizations was almost revolutionary. Meanwhile, in space, the battle was reaching its climax. Admiral Turner led the main human fleet toward the massive Council dreadnought that served as Ambassador Zekthar's flagship. The ship was enormous and heavily armed, but it was also a symbol of everything wrong with Council rule. Sir, we are detecting massive energy buildup from the genocide weapon platform, reported Lieutenant Commander Davis. They are preparing to fire it at Earth. Admiral Turner felt his blood run cold. The Council was so desperate that they were willing to use their ultimate weapon even with their own capital world in the line of fire. All ships converge on the weapon platform, Admiral Turner ordered. Whatever happens, we cannot let them fire that thing. Captain Morrison's squadron reached the platform first. The massive structure was defended by dozens of ships, but the human pilots attacked with desperate courage. They knew that billions of lives depended on their success. Sir, the weapon is charging up, reported Morrison's tactical officer. We have maybe 2 minutes before they can fire. Then we finish this now, Captain Morrison replied. He ordered his ship on a direct collision course with the weapon's main reactor. All ships target the reactor core. Concentrate all firepower. The combined assault from the human fleet overwhelmed the platform's defenses. Explosions rippled across the massive structure as critical systems failed. The genocide weapon that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries died in a burst of fire and debris. The destruction of the weapon sent shockwaves through both fleets. The Council forces realized that their ultimate threat was gone while the human alliance knew they had prevented mass murder on an unimaginable scale. Ambassador Zekthar's flagship was surrounded and his communications systems destroyed. The great Council fleet that had once dominated the galaxy was scattered and broken. The age of tyranny was ending. In the Assembly Hall, President Collins stood before the gathered representatives of free worlds. Today we have proven that freedom is stronger than fear, she said. We have shown that cooperation is more powerful than domination. The galaxy has a chance to build something better than what came before. Admiral Turner received the final surrender message from the remaining Council forces. The battle was over and humanity had won, but more importantly, the galaxy was free. Years later, Admiral Hayes would look at star charts showing the Free Worlds Alliance that had grown from that historic day. Humanity had kept its promise and never sought to rule over other species. Instead, they had become the protectors of galactic freedom. The galaxy learned that pushing humanity too far had indeed been their greatest mistake, but it had also been their greatest opportunity. From the ashes of the old order had risen something better than anyone had dared to imagine.